So everyone, it is really wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much to everyone online. We really appreciate you being here. The Turing Way has always been distributed and as inclusive and as online first as possible. So really, really wonderful to be able to do a hybrid event that's so well organized. Thank you so much to the organizers. And we are going to celebrate 5 years with the Turing Way. And I am just going to give you a few slides to tell you the story of how the Turing Way started. So I was tasked with being asked about a project that was unusual to fund, something that wasn't normally funded by traditional research grants. And I happened to give a talk in Berlin, and there was a wonderful coffee shop. And I sat there with my pen and my paper. I wasn't allowed my laptop, and I had the most fabulous pastry and coffee. And I thought about my personal lived experiences of the file drawer effect, a lack of reproducibility, my imposter syndrome around coding, the fact that doing research can be very, very lonely, that there's a huge amount of wasted time, and also the hypocrisy of academia, that we sort of position ourselves as doing a great social good and then actually are just as sort of competitive as almost everywhere else. And I wanted to leave in this slide. This is from a longer talk that I gave recently, but this is my kind of like Baz Luhrmann wear sunscreen moment. If there was one thing that I would encourage you all to do, it is version control. Everything else that hangs on, all the sort of aspects around reproducibility, all of the efficiencies that we can build are underpinned by version controlling really well. So they hit some of the challenges. They don't hit, version control doesn't hit the file drawer effect problem, and it doesn't hit the hypocrisy of academia problem. Both of those are different, but at least it hits those middle ones. And it's good as an individual action that someone can take. These slides, excitingly, good past Kirstie for both archiving her slides from the collaborations workshop on the 2nd of April 2019, but also not just archiving the PDF, also archiving the PowerPoint. So I just downloaded these last night. I've cut out quite a few of them, but they're very good. And they tell you what we launched 5 years ago, which was a handbook for reproducible research. It was funded by a £48 million government funding boost to the Alan Turing Institute. We started a program that I am now honored to lead called Tools, Practices and Systems. The happy birthday banner is overwhelmed by the amount of money that we were given. And we spent it in part on starting the Turing Way. And it is a lightly opinionated handbook for reproducible data science. And the laugh about that is that anyone who's met me knows that I haven't had a light opinion in my life. But we as a community try to put forward opinions that people are invited to take, but not required to do so. I'm not going to dig through this plot because probably if you're at the collaborations workshop, you've seen it 1 million billion times before, but this is available. This was part of the presentation. This was part of the original descriptions that we had in the book. We also had descriptions of barriers to reproducible research, why people don't work reproducibility. My favorite of these is the plead the fifth, which is a terribly jargony word around why would I give evidence against myself? Why would I allow people to see the errors in my work? But actually what the Turing Way hits is the required additional skills. So we wanted to allow people to get those skills if they were interested to do so. Excitingly, also, these slides had a bunch of pictures in them, so I didn't have to go back through all of my social media to find them. So when we started the Turing Way project, we ran Build a Binder workshop with Sarah, who's right here. We ran a Build a Binder Hub workshop with Patricia, who has been taking great care of us over this last few weeks and also the last few days. We've got Ranieri, we've got Tanya, and we have Cake, and we have an open source project that we're supporting, and we have Anna, who some of you may know as well. So we had an incredible dream team right from the start. I left this in here. We had Cake right from the beginning, and we collaborated with the Binder team, which is now part of Jupyter. We told people at the collaborations workshop 5 years ago about Jupyter Book, and we were very proud that the Turing Way, as a lightly opinionated handbook, was available as a Jupyter Book, an interactive book that could be collaboratively written and version controlled on GitHub. At the very beginning, when we started the project, we had lots of great post-it sessions thinking about what were the skills, what was the information, was it that we needed people to know? And this was our sort of kind of starter for 10 of where we wanted to start. And when we launched at the Collaborations Workshop, we had a chapter on research data management, open research, reproducibility, version control with Git, capturing your compute environment, testing for research, and continuous integration. I was extremely proud then, I am extremely proud now of how much we managed to achieve in just a few months of getting started. Also, high five me for version controlling my slides. These are our original team. How amazing is it? Most of you will know these people. I'm going to pause and give them a round of applause because some of them are here in the room. So yes. And from the start, we used the contributors key. And now we have a huge GitHub repository with lots of information about 5 different guides, different ways of participating, lots of pathways. We have a whole bunch of Scriberia illustrations that people use all around the world. And we have hundreds and hundreds, more than 400 contributors to our work. So I made this GIF last night, just scrolling through our README, and wanted to take a moment to say thank you so, so much to everyone who has been part of the project since then. There are multiple ways of participating in the Turing Way. We have an incredible localization and translation working group. We have work going on around skills policy and research infrastructure roles, infrastructure maintainers. Thank you so much to everyone that keeps the book alive and working. We have a practitioners hub, which is a collaboration with Innovate UK. We have a Book Dash team. Our Book Dash applications closed yesterday, but don't worry, you can come to the next one in November. We have an environmental data science team, accessibility working group, and we have lots of focus on training and outreach as well as discussions that are happening across the project on lots and lots of different topics. And then lastly, the last sort of thing that I wanted to highlight is that what we are currently working on, come and join us if you're interested in these discussions, is thinking about how we can make sure that there are community level decisions that people can make, that they can open an issue, open a pull request. They've always been invited to be able to sort of participate and contribute to the book to improve it in some way. That we're formalizing some of our working groups to give people that more sort of traditional maintainer level of engagement that requires longer term engagement and more specialized expertise. And then we're also trying to formalize the project leadership, which is what we're calling a constitutional level, which really requires sort of the complex understanding of the project's history. This is mapping very clearly onto our goal for having a mountain of engagement that gives people opportunities to kind of become more and more involved in the project over time. And I want to thank, in my last sort of minute of this introduction, the most incredible Malvika Sharon, who is not here. She is actually at a friend's wedding. So, I mean, how dare they get married at the exact same time as the Collaborations Workshop? But she joined the project in January 2020. She now co-leads it. She joined as community manager. She now co-leads the project with me. She is the absolute breathing heart and soul of the whole project. She is incredible. She knows almost every single word of the book. She knows almost every single person who has contributed. Absolutely amazing. So a little bit of a round of applause for all of the 400 people who have contributed over the time. A little bit of a round of applause for all of you who are going to become contributors, even if you are not already. But actually a great big round of applause, please, for Malvika, who will hear us in Spain, where she is currently celebrating her friends. Amazingly, I did that on time. I was very nervous last night about whether that was going to fit. I'm going to keep us moving because the way that we've designed this workshop is we wanted to give 3 deep dives into, oh, they're not deep dives because they're 5-minute presentations, 3 shallow dives into example initiatives that we have in the book. And I am delighted to give a little presentation about our software testing chapter. It is one of the original chapters that was merged. It has been enhanced over time. And it is this is what it looks like. It has some sub-chapters, And what I love about on the first page, honestly, you can look in the Git history, it's been there for a while. Perhaps the cleanest expression of why testing is important for research as a whole can be found in the Software Sustainability Institute slogan, better software, better research. So we agree. And I love this GIF very, very much about thinking about, is your code doing what you think it's doing? And on here, we have a little bit of Python code that says, is the outcome of the function get time of day equal to the word morning? And in the morning, when the sun is risen, get time of day will return morning. And so the assertion that morning and morning are equal will be true. So your test will pass. But in nighttime, get time of day will come back as evening. And so your assertion to say, is evening and morning equal, then your test will fail. And what I love about the Python language for this is that it's really as sort of semantically logical as that. And in our book, we have sub-chapters on smoke testing, unit testing, integration testing, system testing, acceptance and regression testing, runtime, and then also we take you into continuous integration. And what I love this book. I didn't write almost a single word that's in this book. I love the way that it's written. The general guidance in good practice for testing just says, oh my goodness, just get started. Just write tests, any tests. The advice in this section, I've just pulled out the headings, is run the tests, consider how long it takes for your tests to run and be sensible about that. Use a testing framework, aim to have good code coverage, and use test doubles, stubs, and mocking where appropriate. And like I said, the sort of the kindness in the spirit of the book comes through all the way. Make improvements where you can and do your best to include tests with new code you write, even if it's not feasible to write tests for all of the code that's already written. Get started doing just a tiny thing. It is going to make the world a better place if you can. I also wanted to highlight to you that on this page of overview of testing types, which gives you the list down here, there are an example of manufacturing a ballpoint pen where you could unit test the individual parts of the pen. You can then run an integration test to check, for example, that the cap fits on the body. That's like a sensible thing to test. You might do a system test to check that the pen can write. That's when they're all together. Does it actually do the thing you want it to do? An acceptance test would make sure that the pen is the right color that your client maybe ordered from you. And a regression test you run all the time to check to see what's changed in your code, because you may be introducing some strangenesses as you go along. And on this page, there are bugs. And it is a feature in the Turing Way that there are bugs. So the links here, the references are broken. So should you wish to open an issue and fix those, you are very much invited to do so. The reason that we put this chapter in and linked it to the themes of the collaborations workshop this year is to think about sort of why is it useful to have reproducible and explainable results? If you code your data processing, analysis, and visualizations, and if you share protocols for the manual steps, you then have the opportunity to test to catch changes. Sometimes those changes will be planned and sometimes they will be unplanned. And you can keep a human in the loop to track how the analyses behave under different circumstances. So an AI may be able to write its own code and write its own tests, but making sure that there's a human sort of checking what's going on with that is part of making sure that we have responsible research and innovation. I think I am up with my time, and I've done well on time there as well. So what we have now, yes, I can pause here. What we have now is the opportunity for anyone to ask any questions for a couple of minutes or reflect on whether software testing is at all useful. I can take a deep breath. So online folks and anyone online, do you have any questions or thoughts relating to software testing? Martin, I'm going to come with the microphone.
So this one's always felt as one of the, what's the challenge of value for others and value for yourself, like in the reproducibility thing. And I see loads of value of making sure my code's right and my analysis is right. But it does also seem like it hits upon the sort of pleading the fifth challenge, especially when you're introducing tests to code that's already, say, produced stuff. Are there any kind of anecdotes of kind of hitting that challenge in real life and sort of how we went through that?
Do you want to go for the second mic now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Does anyone, so I don't really need to answer the question. Does anyone in the room have answers to that question? In the chapter on the Turing Way, there's a news story example of where testing would have helped. So there are examples of sort of catastrophic failures of testing. But I think my suspicion is that probably there aren't very many stories of where people have like caught the error just in time. I think part of the plead the fifth is don't look if you don't want to know. So I think a lot of times something people don't know, but also I think oftentimes, and this is actually a culture that we in the Turing Way would support, it should be okay to make mistakes. It should be okay to catch the errors. That's actually part of a sort of team development. Any other thoughts on testing? And look on the screen. I think if not, we can save a little bit of time. We can start rushing a little bit less. And may I introduce Alejandro? And are you ready to share your screen, Alejandro, and give the next presentation about our work relating to environmental sustainability? Unmute, Alejandro, and we'll just check that we can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Go for it.
Oh, sorry, I'm feeling very FOMO that I'm participating in the celebration in person, but today I'm glad today to cover some aspects of the Environmental Sustainability Collaborators Group. I am research fellow in the Environment and Sustainability Grand Challenge at the Turing, and of course it is an area that in my case and my team I would like to bring the best practices to the Turing Way, but I also want to bring some examples of other members that are doing great work in these areas and trying to communicate that through the Turing Way. So first, I just want to mention that we started saying that the Turing Way love our planet Earth, and I guess it's a kind of awareness that I guess most of the members have for now. And I in this collaborator group, I'm just covering what is the system work in how we are contributing to understand our planet Earth, and as well contributing to be more open on how we are understanding it and how the impact that we are doing in data science on AI is impacting the planet Earth. So there are two areas that I will provide some example how this has worked. So first is how the Turing Way has inspired and joined forces with open science communities to contextualize open research practices for environmental data scientists. And the second area of work is the Turing Way collaborating with researchers, open movements, and activists working on how minimizing the environmental impacts of the data science. So I'm just gonna focus in those areas. Of course, if you think after this presentation you can contribute in another area, you are welcome, and I will share how you can join in this discussion. So let's start for the first track, and it's about how we are implementing these open research practices in the environmental data science community. And we have this example from the environmental data science book. That is a community that is started 2 years back and highly inspired by the Turing Way and validated in the Open Seeds program, before that we call it Open Life Science program. And in this community, we co-create computational notebooks to showcase and support the publication of data, research, open source tools for collaborative, reproducible, and transparent environmental data science. We adopted similar technologies like we use in the Turing Way, but it's slightly more practical, and we focus in providing practical demonstrators using the Jupyter like ecosystem to, in this case, Jupyter Notebooks to support the publication of these demonstrators, and all these demonstrators are reproducible. And a particular aspect of this community that we're implementing the open review, and we are creating a community of authors, reviewers, and editors, and trying to improve the quality. This project is currently funded by the Environmental Sustainability Grant Challenge. But the focus is how, through this experience, we've been contributing to other open science communities. So it may be obvious that we are contributing to the Turing Way. And for instance, the practices that we learned in the ETS book, we are trying to get back and share those best practices. We for instance, contributed to the research object in action subchapter, where we essentially made a kind of content that indicates how is the life cycle of research object theory and which are the existing platforms to create the research objects. We try to contribute with the Scriberia illustration, like sharing our ideas, how we see open peer review with our Turing Way members, how we see the scalable environmental data science, and this illustration being reused not only by this book, by other members of the community. In the Turing Environmental Sustainability Grant Challenge, we were trying to have a joint community presence, and as well with the externals community through fireside chats. A big achievement of the ETS booth as a community is try to organize events, and last year we organized the first repository challenge for the climate informatics community, and we have almost like 24 participants worldwide and 9 reviewers from different continents and areas of the world. And the ETS book was the core platform to submit interactive reproduction reports, and this is kind of a very innovative aspect of this community because most of the reproduction reports are not using notebooks, so we innovate in that regards. And finally, we trying to also contribute to our community like Pangeo, and most of the notebooks that we have in our community are highlighting the Pangeo stack. We go beyond that, and we also share spaces with the Pangeo community in Europe, the presence, and we've been organizing some co-sharing sessions with them in main international conference, regional conference, and as well trying to promote the ETS book, and where possible the Turing Way as a good example of open research practices. Maybe this is something, the other area of work that I would like to mention, where we are working and how you can contribute. So is discussing and very pertinent for the topic of the collaborative workshop this year, the environmental impact of digital research. Just to mention, there was an issue that Turing Way member opened about this topic in November 2022, and it was someone that was Carlos, essentially, that attended in the workshop last year, was having this discussion with other like attendees at that time, and they started a kind of discussion of that, and they created this speed block around August 2023. But how we go beyond having this in the collaborative workshop and share with other members in the Turing Way community. So we, in the boot dash, with some members that participated in the collaborative workshop, we have a new chapter about the environmental impact of digital research, where we essentially is part of the ethical research guide, and essentially aims to summarize to the wider audience what are the different problems and what are the different kind of solutions, how we can contribute to reduce the impact. Another kind of achievement that I would say after this like kind of more like content to the Turing Way was organizing a fireside chat that focused on sustainability and research, and this one was co-hosted by the Turing Way, the ETS book, and the Netherlands eScience Center, and essentially we have a kind of knowledge shares in the format of the fire chat with different like individuals that represent different movements in this aspect, and we had very like insightful discussions around the topic, including we have Loe that was one of the panelists today, and from that we started a Slack channel that everyone is welcome to join, that is the environmental sustainability, and it's here where I encourage everyone that is joining the Turing Way community would like to have discussion in these two areas of work or new ones. Feel free to join this Slack workspace. And I just ended my presentation like pointing some resources that everyone is able to access later in through the Senado, the DOI that you see here, and essentially summarize those activities, and as well a kind of blog posts that summarize more the ETS booth and the experience that I have with the repository challenge. So that's it from my side. So thank you everyone, and hope that we can have a big celebration later.
Right, let's try a different mic. Hi, everyone. Let me tell my hilarious joke again. So it was, sorry, what it was is that I was encouraging anyone to ask either a question or to share a comment or a reflection. It doesn't have to be a question. I think I can maybe ask Alejandro and is Cass online? Sorry, I might be missing. No, she had to go and pick up her kids. Sorry. So maybe Alejandro, you can think about. So I had a really interesting conversation over lunch about communities of communities and how communities can kind of share knowledge with each other. And I wonder, Alejandro, what reflections you have about sort of bridging environment and sustainability conversations with open science, open research conversations. How's that gone?
Yeah, bringing. I guess that's happening like in this kind of a space, like the Turing Way is offering, like bringing a space where everyone can learn from experience from other communities, and that's why I'm trying to share best practices through the Turing Way. Of course, there are other efforts in my domain that I am aware that people are environmental scientists trying to connect with people in open science movement, like the NASA TOPS initiatives, one to mention like that. There's big efforts, but I think that's already happening, and I guess Turing Way is like offering this kind of community of communities space, and I'm sure that more kind of achievements or areas of work we can have in the future in this environmental sustainability group, and collaborating workshop is a great space to promote this as well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Any other thoughts or reflections? I think let's keep chugging along with the last of our presentations, and then we'll go into a bit more of discussion. Sophia, are you ready? You can take the microphone from me, and then yeah, you're ready to go.
Yep. Hello, everyone. So I think Kirstie started off her talk by saying, why should we have this thing? And so what I'm going to be presenting today is a chapter that has been written on hosting events with members of the public. And one of the core reasons we may be thinking about that right now is we've been listening to all these citizen science engagement talks, and events are different when we're thinking about engaging members of the public. And this talk is going to feature a live merge. So can everyone take a moment? Let's pray to the Git gods that live demos are going to work. All right. So as with many resources that I'm sure we've all developed, a lot of things happen organically. So this chapter started as a lot of community discussions about how do projects engage with members of the public, how do public want to be engaged and involved in research projects themselves. We then thought, hey, there are a bunch of really good ideas. We should start writing those down. And then the question is, great, we've got a document. Where do we put it? And as many of you will have soon joined the Turing Way community or are already part, you'll know that the Turing Way is this massive global community where researchers can find resources and read the book out of order as it is meant to be read, but it was ultimately one of the best places to put this guide. So it started out as a chapter that came from this community called the AAI for Multiple Long-Term Conditions, or AIM, Research Support Facility, Community of Practice for Public and Patient Involvement and Engagement. A lot of acronyms, but it's a wonderful community that started with the 8 core AIM projects and then expanded to include and grow to support 25 different projects, all focusing on multiple long-term condition research and how we can involve patients and members of the public, people who have developed an expertise through their lived experience in the research projects, so that experts by experience can work alongside members of research teams, data scientists, clinicians who are experts by study. Now, traditionally, we know that research kind of thinks of participants as data points, where research is done to people, it is done for them on their behalf, because how could they possibly know how research is done, and it's also done for the public good. But as we start to shift towards a more inclusive model, we're thinking about how can research be done with experts by lived experience and establish equity through esteem, supporting citizens becoming scientists, supporting community science, and supporting members of the public actively engaging in the research itself through an active partnership between everyone involved. So what we've kind of done with the chapter is developed a guide focused on initial planning. How do you even start to think about planning an event that is going to be welcoming and inclusive to a diverse audience? And what does this mean when we think about event design as a whole? Now, the SSI puts on these wonderful events that we're all at, which have been done incredibly well with a hybrid approach. Hybrid is best, go hybrid. But it also provides some guidance on what technology can be used to support the events with a very diverse audience. This event, I think, has been laid out quite well, but when we're thinking about when things take place in academic institutions, where there are great halls, when there are classrooms, how can we actually lay that out so that everyone is able to engage in a conversation and participate equitably? Now, social networking can be the bane of everyone's existence. I know that I normally hide from research events, and I'm coming from the research background. So how can we actually design social networking when we're standing in line for coffee, when we're thinking about speed networking, or whichever piece comes into part with events, to make sure that everyone is involved and we don't just hang out with our colleagues and then hang out with people we don't know in little corners around a room. There's also a lot that goes into scientific communication when you're working with a general audience, and this is just as true when you're working with clinicians, researchers from all these different backgrounds trying to come to a common understanding. And this section of the chapter really focuses on how you are communicating, what you are communicating, and when can that information be communicated. And then finally, event agendas. Parallel sessions can be overwhelming, but they can also be really wonderful. And what can often happen when you're working with traditional PPIE, public involvement and public and patient involvement engagement events, is that you'll have one track focusing on all the patients and then all the researchers over here. So how can we actually design an event that celebrates the expertise that we have in the room and integrate it throughout the project and the event? So, deep breath, let's do this. So, this is the chapter. As we can see, we're not allowed to merge it until the 1st of May. Is it the 1st of May? Amazing. So this chapter so far in all of its drafts has 343 commits. So a huge thank you to everyone who has helped bring this into being. There is a grand list of changes, which includes all the pages on the different sections that I just touched on. We've also added different pieces of expertise to some of the existing guides, mostly so that we're like, yeah, we approved everything here, which is really wonderful. And we also added a bunch of terms to the glossary because, again, you've heard me use a bunch of acronyms. So how are those acronyms working in practice? I have said here, which some of you, if you work on GitHub, most of you probably do, normally reviewers should look at things. I've said, hey, this has been reviewed quite extensively. So massive thank you to everyone that's been involved. But if you do want to catch up to and add in a version 2 of the chapter, because everything in the Turing Way is a living document, feel free to go through the history which is captured and join in the conversation. So, all things going to plan. We've got the green button. Let's merge. Well, let's give it 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go. 3, 2, 1. Yeah! Yay! So we should see this chapter added to the guide for collaboration in its heart about hosting events with public contributors. And anyone can find any of the information if they're interested in more at this chapter, and also please help us find typos. Two final slides, because again, I've said thank you to everyone, but this would not have been possible without the amazing team at the AIM RSF. So a huge thank you to everyone involved that supported writing such a big chapter and also supports the project. And of course, thank you to a massive community of clinicians, nurses, researchers, speech and language therapists, members of the public, and everyone who has contributed to this guide. Thank you.
That's so exciting. That's so exciting. That has been a lot of work. There's been loads and loads of people that have fed into it. I actually was going to ask if anyone who has contributed to the chapter wanted to share their reflections of contributing, because I think there's a few people online who have been part of that reviewing and part of those discussions. Does anyone want to share their perspectives? I know, Anne, I know you're multitasking because we also have a collaboration cafe that's happening at the moment. So I don't know, are you able to talk, or are you able to, are you busy, multitasking? Oh, so let me rephrase it. So I'll ask the specific question for Anne so that you get you back on track. Like I said, Anne is we have our regular collaboration cafes that are happening right now. So welcome to anyone who's also joining
from a very different Zoom room.
Can I just check, folks online? Can you hear Anne? Is that microphone working now?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, thumbs up.
I guess yes.
Thank you. You need to turn around to wave at the camera for them to answer. But what has Sophia really sort of gave the AI for multiple long-term conditions research support facility perspective. But there's also been a lot of work and engagement from the accessibility working group for the Turing Way. And I just wonder if maybe you wanted to give like a tiny little overview of the accessibility working group and kind of how those discussions have moved along. They've been incredibly important.
Totally. So the accessibility, we have a number of working groups that have kind of emerged within the Turing Way community. Also, hello, everyone. I'm Anne, the current community manager of the Turing Way. We have working groups that have emerged from different topics and people working on different subjects that really kind of, in many ways, sometimes I think that the Turing Way kind of holds the pulse on wider questions and subjects that are of interest really to the wider research software engineering community and really the research community more broadly. And the accessibility working group emerged at the end of 2021 into 2022 when we had a number of folks that were really starting to talk about what does access look like, and the Turing Way being a community that wants to model a lot of the behaviors that we talk about and write about in the guides. We had some folks that gave presentations at our book dash around how do you create events that are welcoming for folks that are hard of hearing, or how do you create materials around for folks that might be not able to see. And from that emerged this kind of larger discussion and question that involved actually different members of our community from the translation and localization community within the Turing Way that were like, actually access for us also means across geographies. It means across languages. It means, access in a really broad sense. And so we realized that within the Turing Way, as we are starting our venture into making a sixth guide, which is really led by the accessibility working group, that we really want to, create a set of norms that defines access really broadly, as really trying to cut down any barriers, cut down being that was the wrong language, but rather like, prevent or enable people to participate in the project, despite any barriers that may face, whether that overlaps with accessibility as we think about it in the context of disability, but it really could be anything. And so the accessibility working group has really been a part of that process, and really in collaborating with Sophia, really started to ask a lot of questions around how do we separate the types of language that are used in the clinical context and the research context for folks that may not have the same experiences, and in many ways may not be a part of the PPIE community. And it was a really I think a year worth of discussion and collaboration that we've had together. And it's props to Sophia and to all the folks in the accessibility working group that are not here in this room today, that were really, have been a part of, shifting those definitions and really kind of pushing back against the norms that, make us think that access is in one direction, but it actually can mean really anything. That's hopefully enough of a summary.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you. CI is green. What a loop. We have tests that are run on the Turing Way, and we run them regularly. But we are also thoughtful about our environmental impact. Look at me, I'm tying everything together. Any other questions or reflections on Sophia's presentation and successful live merge? Choo. I think, Jez, let me come to thank you so much. Here we go.
It gives me something to do.
So folks online, sorry, I know this camera doesn't allow you to see everyone, but hopefully you can hear okay.
If you have the answer to the dark art of how to do a live demo and not have it fail, please share this knowledge with the rest of us. Maybe there should be some kind of chapter in the Turing Way.
I think the answer is to work on it for 4 months solid. Like that's one way of making sure that it works. There's been the one of the things, actually, to give a slightly more serious answer, but it was very interesting to kind of see it introduced a little confusion occasionally, was that so Sophia didn't work in one branch that had a pull request to main. She actually worked in multiple branches that added specific parts of the chapters that went to a work in progress branch that then collated all of those together. And it was only once everything was sort of tied, you know, with getting very close to the final version, that Sophia actually opened up a pull request to main. And what that meant was that sometimes there were confusions around kind of a merge of a pull request that maybe hadn't been fully, a point that hadn't been fully discussed, but it wasn't a merge to main, it wasn't a final merge, it was I've fixed that particular formatting error, or I've fixed that particular kind of adding in a figure or something like that. So that was a really great example of sort of modular contributions using pull requests, and also a great example of kind of the safe space that we're hoping to build in the Turing Way to allow people who don't feel super confident working in a Git or and ask the questions that they might feel intimidated to ask elsewhere. These are all the different pull requests. Sorry, I was like, what am I looking at? What's happening? Sorry, so the people were pointing in the room at the screen, and these are all of the various different pull requests that were shared, which is absolutely fantastic. So now we're going to stop talking at you and give you the opportunity. I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to share Celebrating 5 Years with the Turing Way. And if you scroll down, you can get to a section in the shared document for breakout discussions. So we'd like you in groups. If it's one big group in the table, that's okay. If you want to split up into 2 small groups, it's up to you. It's not a big deal. And we'd like to discuss 2 questions in parallel. So you don't need to wait for me to tell you to move on to the second one. Answer them both at the same time. And add your answers next to the bullet points below. We don't have separate parts of the document for each individual group. So just sort of you're all feeding in on your reflections together. And as a reminder, the aim of this part of the workshop, this part of our birthday party, I mean, this is honestly, like, this is actually what Kirstie enjoys as birthday parties. So like, that's an interesting reflection on Kirstie's priorities. Attendees feel reassured that there is progress being made in open and responsible research and innovation, even if there are still many challenges to overcome. So your 2 questions in the document are, what have we, the Collaborations Workshop community, achieved in the last 5 years? And what do we, the Collaborations Workshop community, predict will change in the next 5 years? So I take a moment to see how far we've come, and also take a guess at what you think is next on the change table. You are welcome to be hopeful or realistic, and I don't mind whichever direction those conversations go. Folks online, I'm going to split you up into, I think, 3 breakout rooms. You're going to be randomly assigned, and so please have those discussions. Come back to the main room if you have any questions, and I'll be able to help debug them. So everyone, yeah, please enjoy those conversations. Okay, folks, it is now the most exciting part of the workshop. Folks online, everyone's talking so much that they're not listening to me, but they'll get there. They'll get there. Thank you for sticking around. So because there are a few more activities, we have to make sure that we finish on time. And so I'm going to ask us to start sort of doing your breathing preparations for the sing along portion of the birthday party. at the front here. So, hey folks, can I just stop everyone having an interesting conversation? Thank you. So we are now at the most important part of the birthday party, the singing of the happy birthday and the cake. We have a rainbow cake, and we have a boy caterpillar and a girl caterpillar. Insert conversations about the gender binary here. We have a gluten-free cake, and we have a vegan cake. And we also have some confetti cannons, and I'm very excited about that. And also, if you are noise sensitive, please be aware that we have 3 shop bought. I don't think they're going to sort of really be over the top, but they might be a little bit of a surprise. So we've got some confetti cannons, and Ale, who is was the Turing Way's project manager, but has just moved to a new role as senior community manager for our Bridge AI collaborations with Innovate UK. Ale, would you like to direct us timing wise? Come together. And folks online, I'm going to try and is there anyone who is willing to, on their phone, join the Zoom room to be able to stream a video of the birthday cake? Folks online, we have the cakes. We've got a few photos of the cakes. We're going to try and make it so that you can see us a little bit better. Not yet. No. Okay. Okay. Are you online? No, is it not? Is it too difficult to get a stream? No. Okay. Okay. I think unfortunately, folks online, you're just going to have to look from a bit far away, but don't worry, because I've got a microphone and we'll sing happy birthday. So that's going to be a real joy for you all. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Turing Way. Happy birthday to you. Confetti cannons. 3. Oh my God, I got microphone. 3, 2, 1. Amazing, amazing. Folks online, I suspect that now is a great time for you to wiggle off, because I think watching us try and slice up cake is going to just be a little bit mean. But really, really thank you so much for everyone for joining online. Thank you for everyone who's come to our party. We so appreciate all of the contributions and all of our community of communities together.
Bye.
Happy birthday. Have a great evening.